Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Coming Distractions brought to you by the Nerdpocalypse podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Okay, guys, let's talk about Uncle Drew. This is a sports comedy film newly released starring Lil Rel Howery, Kyrie Irving, Shaquille O'Neal, Chris Webber, Reggie Miller, Nate Robinson, Lisa Leslie, and Erica Ashe, amongst many other people. So the general premise here is that Lil Rel Howery is playing a character named Dax, who is a coach of a streetball team that is competing in this very famous streetball tournament called the Rucker Classic in Harlem. He ends up having like a star player played by Aaron Gordon, who gets taken away from him amongst his other players by a rival coach played by Nick Kroll named Mookie. That team, once they leave and go under this other guy, it forces Dax to try to find a new team because he's sunk all his personal money into building this team so that he can win this big tournament. And he ends up hearing rumors of this guy, Uncle Drew, who used to be a player back in the 70s, who's like this amazing basketball player, who's played by Kyrie Irving in like old people makeup, basically. And he goes and he tracks this guy down, and the movie basically is a series of fetch quest, like kind of a road trip for Uncle Drew, who agrees to play on this team, to go pick up his old guys that he used to play basketball with. They haven't been in touch in like 30 years because of a series of events, and they almost played in the finals for the Rucker Classic back in the day. So it's this little road trip sort of scenario in the first couple of acts as he's picking up these other characters. And look, this movie is about as predictable as you'd imagine it would be, right? They go, they get the other guys. There's a little bit of conflict between the older guys. There's a lot of old people jokes because these guys are retired or current basketball players. And you know, so there's a couple of like inside NBA jokes, which is kind of funny if you know anything about like currently what's happening in the NBA. There's obviously a lot of old people jokes. You know, it's like, oh, you know, my hips are acting up, but then like they can slam dunk a ball. You know, it's kind of like that. And it's as predictable as you think. Exactly what you assume is going to happen in this movie. But what I will say is it does a pretty good job of doing what it's set out to do. Like it is a family friendly comedy. Look, I can't help it. There's part of me that loves a good sports comeback story, even if it's contrived and goofy like this movie is, right? These guys are in their 70s, but somehow they're going to beat these 20 somethings in basketball, which is ludicrous. So you get those kind of moments, and as these characters are famous for doing whatever on the court, as they kind of slowly get back into it, you get those kind of great moments. It's an easy watch. It's a super easy watch. I was entertained. It doesn't do anything wildly crazy. It doesn't do anything wildly bad. It's just kind of right down the middle and just nails exactly what it's trying to accomplish. What I will say is some of the jokes don't quite land just because the delivery isn't always that great, just because these guys are basketball players. They're not actors. That being said, some of the better moments are Shaquille O'Neal's character, just because he's been in a few things and he's like pretty decent when it comes to acting, not great. But he's also has like pretty good comedic timing. So that kind of works. And he's this big lumbering guy, even, you know, supposedly in his 70s. So those parts work okay. Not great, but they work okay. Nick Kroll's character is pretty funny as the sort of rival, ridiculous villain of the story. Lil Rel Howery is hilarious, as he always is. I mean, he's the star of the show for the most part. But he's got a kind of a heartwarming story as you kind of find out more about his background as it goes on. Erica Ashe, who's kind of she's the granddaughter of one of the older players. And she sort of has an interest in Dax as time goes on. You know, it's very predictable is what I'll say, but she does a good job here as well. But it's a good sports funny comedy story of sorts. It works. Again, it doesn't do anything wildly outside of the bounds of where it's supposed to be. So it's a 3 out of 5 for me. I enjoyed it. If you like basketball and you really want to see these players like be goofy but still do the things that they normally do on the court, it's kind of cool to see them do that in old people makeup. the basketball scenes specifically are actually pretty well shot and a lot of fun. Like by the end, as they've kind of like gotten their groove as a team again, like they're just dunking on these guys that are like, you know, supposedly like a third of their age, which is just kind of hilarious to watch. But all in all, it's a pretty good time. Again, if you had any interest in this, it's exactly what you think it's going to be. It's an easy movie to watch with kids. There's no like super crass humor that would be offensive. At least I didn't find to be. There's nothing particularly all that like serious and adult about it. It's an easy story to follow. If you just got something to watch on a Saturday, check it out. 3 out of 5 for Uncle Drew, and we'll see you guys next time. You're watching the Nerdpocalypse YouTube channel. Make sure you click that button to subscribe and check out our weekly podcast where we talk about movie, TV, news, tech, and weird stories from around the internet.